Ethical governance is considered a cornerstone of any well-developed nation, and leaders who adhere to moral principles are more likely to make decisions that prioritize the common good over personal interests. They are said to be more accountable to their citizens and maintain transparency in their actions and work towards reducing corruption. Member of the Committee on Nigeria's Values Charter, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, joins us now to discuss the place of ethics and values in national development, as well as the type of values that Nigeria needs for national growth. He'll also be focusing on the idea behind the constitution of a 10-man committee on value charter. Thank you for being here. Good to see you, Professor.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Pleasure of being here.
Exactly what role do values and ethics play in our national development? How critical is it to get it right?
Yeah, first, I think that we need to have the appreciation of elements that are critical to propelling nations to development levels. And of course, oftentimes we concentrate on the physical, looking at infrastructure, looking at the ability of the society to fend for housing, to cater for shelter, and all those things, that will easily describe as saying that society has met the yearnings and aspirations of the people. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the physical elements. There's also the intangible. The physical element, we can call them the tangible, but the intangible also matter, that deals largely with the psychology of the people, the disposition of the people towards their nation state, the values they subscribe to, the level of their faith in the system that they belong to. And this one has to do with the mind, which can be very, very propelling. Most nations, ideal civilized nations on the world, around the world, often have values that they subscribe to. The United States, a leading nation in the world, often, very regularly, the world around them have also grown to share these values with them, subscribe to the values of freedom, happiness, and prosperity. The UK as well, egalitarianism and care for the citizens. But oftentimes in our own climb, we are largely haphazard about the level, about the kind of values we subscribe to. And oftentimes again, you can see the level at which we privilege monism. We just believe essentially in the power of resources, as being the major determinant of processes and procedures. And what I think the federal government is trying to do through the Ministry of Information, through the National Orientation Agency, and probably through the new head of the place, Mr. Larry Isa Onilu, is to come up, with a charter that will guide the citizenry around the kind of virtues, the kind of values, the kind of cardinal objectives that we should be subscribing to. And of course, in the meantime, we have seen some of the themes that they have formed. One is around egalitarianism, the other is around inclusivity. Democracy is also there, equality is also there, tolerance is also there, then of course progress and prosperity. All these are salutary values that the average individual, the average citizen need to imbibe, need to cultivate, as a way to shape our relationship, with the nation that we belong to. And of course, if we can get that right at the level of mindset, we can engender trust, enhance productivity, especially in a situation where there's a distance, there's a present distance between a trust level between the leaders and the led. And from the concept note I've seen, I see that there are 14 teams in the meantime, 7 on the part of the government and another 7 on the part of the citizens. These things, can largely be worked out if people are enculturated towards believing in them, if it can be ingrained in them over time such that they begin to act it and, of course, increase their level of believability, their level of trust, and the kind of hope that they are able to invest in the system. There are several ways than one, that we can envisage prosperity as a result. You remember what I said? It is not just about development, it's not just about in the physical, but of course also at the level of the psychology. What is your relationship with your nation state? What are the values that you think can propel us, values that you consider salutary, beyond the faith-based orientation that we all have. every Nigerian is either a Muslim or a Christian, and some proportion, some sections of the population belonging to, the traditional religious groups, as the case could be. Yes, we know that these religions, have given us a way of socialization. They have created in us some value system. But of course, we also know that there are secular values that nations, systems, and societies subscribe to. In our own case, I dare say it is still haphazard. I think government wants to begin thinking about harmonizing it such that it can be inculcated into the citizenry, and it will become like a charter between the citizens and the government. And from then on, we can begin to redefine ourselves, if not propelling ourselves to the proper next level that we need to be.
Professor Adeniyi, well, I'm wondering if this is priority at this moment when Nigerians are still struggling to meet their basic needs. And of course, I'm sure you remember the great people, great nation mantra and the change begins with me mantra. We've seen this several times. What has changed this time around, especially with corruption still embedded in our way of life, and even the leaders that are trying to drive these values have credibility issues?
Yeah, that's an excellent one. But we also know that brand building, is a process. Sometimes it can be discontinuous, but the fact that you are breaking it does not mean that you cannot restart it. Nation building is work in progress. Nation building is a journey and not necessarily a destination. If we failed in the past, does not mean that we cannot have a restart. And one of the reasons why we're having this corruption, the many crises that are bedeviling us, is just because we do not subscribe to any value system. We just largely see ourselves as a people, steeped in consumerism, steeped in moneyism, as a people, where everything can be done with money. And of course, if money cannot do it, then of course more money will do it. This belief system is definitely problematic. Problematic in the sense that, one, it doesn't make people care about how the money is sourced, and that's why the one reason that you can adduce to the problem of corruption. And corruption that has become very systemic, deep-seated, and insidious, and you see it permeating all the dimensions, because people care less about their name, and people care less about their brand. They just think the important thing is to have the money, and the end will justify the means. One reason that you can adduce for this,
let me interrupt you
because of
briefly.
A level of high, deep-seated faithlessness in the system that we all belong to. And we're making the point that yes, leaders, I agree with you, leaders are failing, many of them are failed, and we're actually looking for a good leader in Nigeria. It's nearly like looking
Dr.
for
Adeniyi,
a needle, trying to find
really
a needle in a haystack. But it's not a reason
exhausted
for us.
our time. Thank you so much for joining us here on Newsday, as always.